Baseball Commissioner Rob Manfred on Tuesday removed Pete Rose, Shoeless Joe Jackson, and other deceased players from Major League Baseball's permanently ineligible list. So the all-time hit king and Jackson, both longtime baseball pariahs, stained by gambling, seen by Major League Baseball as a game's mortal sin, are now eligible for election into baseball's Hall of Fame in Cooperstown. So when you first heard this story come across your phone, what was your initial reaction?
Look, he broke the cardinal rule. I thought Joe Jackson, because I've read a lot about him, it sounded like Joe Jackson didn't have any idea what he was signing or what he was doing. And there's a lot of evidence that he was not involved. But Kennesaw Mountain Landis, the old commissioner 100 years ago, he was so anti-gambling that he just said, you're done. You're all banned. And I didn't see this coming. I guess the president met with Rob Manfred a few days ago and thought if he wanted something like this for Pete Rose and others if they're dead. And then Manfred took it to another level and said, okay, anybody who's suspended, your suspension ends when you die. I didn't see it coming. I was surprised by it. But again, Pete broke the biggest cardinal rule. There are a lot of guys who either played or are still playing that do not think you should ever be taken off the ban list if you gambled on the sport. They said that's the one rule. You've been in locker rooms like me. Did it for 25 years. You walk in, there is a sign. Absolutely no gambling on baseball. Forbidden. That's the word. He knew what he was doing, man. And you can tell me he bet on his team to win. Maybe. Maybe he didn't. It doesn't matter. He knew the rules. But at some point, are we putting him in as a manager? That's when he did the gambling. That's all the evidence.
Right.
Are we putting him in as a player? Do you tell the whole story? Do you say, here's the story of Peter Edward Rose?
Yeah, senior.
And he's the greatest hitter in the history of the sport. He had more hits than anybody ever. He also was banned for gambling. He admitted to gambling on baseball. He stained the sport. And you're putting him in as a player. For a long time, I did not want to. And once, because he never admitted it, remember?
Well, he lied, Cap. Let's make sure we put that out there first.
Correct.
That he lied about not saying that he never gambled on baseball. And he did gamble on baseball, Cap. And that's the bottom line. No matter what Rob Manfred is doing by saying we're going to remove him from the permanently ineligible list, he's pretty much saying that the punishment is while you're alive, you'll never see the Hall of Fame. But now, posthumously, you may get in 2027. Cap, rules are rules. You don't just bend the rules just because time has passed. Same thing with the Black Sox as well. That whole scandal from 1921 when Kennesaw Mountain Landis said, hey, you fixed the World Series in 1919, there's names like Ed Seacott and Buck Weaver and so many others that were put on that list, yet you'll never see the Hall of Fame. So why change it just because time has moved on? Yes, Pete Rose, for a younger generation that's listening and watching our show, Pete Rose wasn't just a great baseball player. He was iconic. It was a way of life. Pete Rose would draw a walk and sprint down to first base. Why? Because he says, at some point, I'm going to steal second. I want to get my legs warm. Or on a first to third, I want to make sure my legs are ready to go from first to third. There was a way of life about Pete Rose. Charlie Hustle wasn't just baseball. As you remember, people in your generation is like, hey, I'm going to go about my life like Charlie Hustle. You know why? Because you ride until the wheels fall off. That's who he was as a player.
He's the guy that ran into Ray Fosse at the All-Star game. I mean, Ray Fosse's career was never the same.
That's correct.
He lit him up. And somebody asked, why would you do that in an All-Star game? Because it's a game, and I play to win. Period.
I will just tell you that
a lot of respect for some of those things he did.
Outside of possibly the president and his influence on Rob Manfred or having that conversation, baseball has always been the same. Is that if you break the cardinal rule, you should never gamble on baseball, then why should we turn a blind eye to it because Pete Rose is dead? Seriously, I would say it's either one or the other. It's either you allow these people in and tell the story, because ultimately it's just a museum, Cap. The whole Hall of Fame is not what it once was. It's not, because now the writers are letting people in that were nice to them, as you well know. Guys that are on the periphery of Hall of Fame now are Hall of Famers just because they were nice guys. Now the numbers don't matter. Either put them all in or don't put any of them in. That includes Roger Clemens. That includes Bonds. That includes Sosa. All those guys are Hall of Famers. Again, you want to put it on the plaque? Tell the story. When people come in, hey, this was a great player, but, and put it on the plaque. Either let them all in or don't let any of them in. I don't want to say Rose should be in the Hall of Fame, but then Bonds, Clemens, some of the all-time greats or the Black Sox, they shouldn't be. No, let them all in or nobody gets in. Period. That's the way it should be, Cap. You just don't, just because President Trump talks to the commissioner and says, you know what, it's a lifetime ban. Well, they're dead now. Don't take lifetime literally, okay? Well, it's a lifetime ban. Well, they're dead, so now you could put them in. No. And keep in mind, yes, in 2025, gambling's out there for everybody, including players, if they're interested, Cap. As you well know, we've seen players suspended in the NBA and other places. Minor league baseball, it's still wrong. You're still not supposed to do it. But now we knew this, Cap. We knew it was going to happen. As soon as baseball and sports got into the gambling business, you knew that players would be like, hey, I can control this. Hey, put down $100 on me. I can control this. We knew it was going to happen, and it happened.
Yeah, and then we've seen the guys with their prop bets in basketball.
Not a surprise.
Like Michael Porter's brother.
Yeah.
Jonte, right?
Yeah. Not a surprise.
Yeah, I mean, tip of the iceberg, man.
All these guys that we grew up watching, Cap, they were great. There's no question about it. But when you get caught up in the gambling scandal and baseball says no, you're not going to get in the Hall of Fame, and all of a sudden, because they're dead, well, it's a lifetime ban. Well, they're dead, so now put them all in. No. That's a hard line, because you've always been a hard liner with this stuff. You've always has been, especially the steroid guys. You've said no a million times on your platforms.
Yeah, I'm not putting the steroid guys in.
But the same thing with Pete Rose, because, again, it's a rule. That's more of a hardline rule than the steroids. What did the Players Association and Major League Baseball do about the steroid guys? Turned a blind eye to it when they were getting all those home runs after the strike, right? After 94, when baseballs were hit all over this country, 1 million miles, they didn't say anything about it. Very quiet.
Neither side did, because it was a collectively bargained issue. You could not, I've had friends of mine go, well, why didn't they just put a rule in? You can't. It's a union, so it's collectively bargained. And I interviewed with Waddle, I believe, Marvin Miller, shortly before he passed. He came on with this. He said, over my dead body will you ever test my players? You're not getting their blood to see if they're doing steroids. And then as soon as he died, Don Fear took over.
Remember?
And players went to him and said, okay, this is ridiculous. Hoodie's taking all the juice, and he's hitting 50 home runs. Cap's not taking the juice. He's only hitting 22. But if he took the juice, he'd hit close to 50.
Correct.
We want a level playing field. We'll all test. And that's where testing started. So.
I just think that, as I said, because the Hall of Fame has been a joke as of late, letting your friends in or letting people that were nice to you in, that's not the Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame should be able to showcase the best of the best, the greatest of the great. And if they were unsavory and if they weren't great, you put it on the plaque. Either do that or nobody gets in. But this idea that we turn a blind eye to Shoeless Joe Jackson and Pete Rose because the president says so, no shot. They were all great, Cap. But again, there's a hardline rule. You don't gamble on baseball. And Pete Rose said, you know what? I'm going to do it quietly as a manager. He was interested in it. And by the way, after he was done with baseball, he had his own talk show in Las Vegas on the Sports Fan Radio Network.
And for many years, when the Hall of Fame induction weekend was going on at Cooperstown, he'd be at a card shop like a block away. Have you ever been to Cooperstown?
No, I haven't.
So I went with my wife. We flew out there. We went to a couple Yankee games. Then we went to the Hall of Fame. Then we went to Fenway. It was a great trip she put together. And you get to Cooperstown, and it's actually a little disappointing. Like the 3 hours you're in the Hall of Fame, super cool. The rest of the town sucks. It's like 3 blocks of souvenir shops.
What's going on in Cooperstown?
Sounds like a good time to me.
Souvenir shops.
Yes.
And that weekend, Pete would be set up at like the coolest souvenir shop, and he'd be signing autographs. People would leave the Hall of Fame to go get his autograph.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't allowed there. Yeah. But the whole town, it's cool if you have a Little League team. They all go play on those fields. They do the Little League tournaments. That's super cool.
Yeah.
But the town itself, no.